So let's now develop more methods for our student class. Specifically, I would like to start with an alternative to one of the mutated methods that we did for student class. If you go to the student class over here, let's maximize it. If you look at this particular mutated method, which will add a course record objects into one of the slots in the course array. We talked about this pattern in the previous video. If you're not comfortable with it, please refer to the video before you go on. I would like to provide an alternative to this particular method here. So you can see currently it takes only one single parameter over here, and the parameter is of type course record, which means, I'm going to illustrate to you. Whenever you want to call this method, it's assumed you already created a course record object in order to call this method. For example, if you look at the student tester2 method class we got before, in order to call s1.addCourse scr1 over here, right? In order for us to call this particular version of the addCourse, we must have created cr1, which was a course record object in the same method over here, right? Which means we have to create this particular course objects and then add it and then pass it as the input to this particular addCourse method. However, I want to show you another flavor of the method, which means when I actually want to add a course, I don't necessarily have to create an object first. I can say, I want to add a course, but now I only give you the title of the course, which means that the method now, version 2, internally is going to create the course object for me in order to add into the array. Okay, I'll show you exactly how it's going to work, and you're going to compare the two versions together with you. So now I would like to add over here, okay, I'll simply say public void add course, the same name. The same name of the method is allowed in Java as we discussed, as long as the parameters can be distinguished, the inputs. So now I would say rather than course record, I'm simply because for each course we know that the string title is crucial, right? Because if you look at in the course record class, right, you can see in order to create a course record, either we don't pass anything, or we can simply give a title, okay? So, or we can give title and mark. Let's say we choose this particular one. So with the title, you can already create a course record object, even though other attributes might be initialized to default values. That's okay. So let's go back to the student class over here. So I would say students, string, and then title of the course. Okay, and so now what should I assign that to be? A very naive solution, also a very common error, is you simply say this courses, we follow kind of the pattern from before, right? Basically, I'm copying from line number 23. This .noc is simply assigned to title. Okay, this is wrong, by the way, but I'll continue with that. This .noc plus plus. You can see line number 29 compiles, but line number 28 does not compile. Let's see why. If you move your mouse over the red underline, type mismatch cannot convert from string into course record. Let's see exactly why. Okay, we are basically trying to do an assignment over here. The left-hand side of the assignment, what's the type? This courses, we know that the type is simply an array of course records, which means every element in the array is a course record. So now what do we expect to see on the right-hand side? We expect to see course record objects, right? We are going to store the address of some course record objects into the slot of the array. However, we're only giving a title, which is a string. So that's why we cannot do this, okay? We're getting very close though, because the information over here is sufficient for us to create a course record objects internally inside the method. So that's what I would do. What I can do instead is to say, rather than passing the course record objects directly like in version number 1, in version number 2, okay, let me just write it down here for you. Version 2 being given title, which is sufficient to create a new course record objects. And version number 1 from the previous video would say, given a course record object to be stored directly into the courses array. Okay, now in the second version, we have to create such object first before we can store it into the array. So let's create the objects. So what we should do is over here inside the method, this might be something new to you as well. So now, since we are getting to the more advanced level compared with 1 week ago, so now every time within a particular method, you may, number one, create a new object of other type. Number two, you may also call other methods. That's something we're going to show you. That's really something you want to get used to for your lab exercises and also for your lab test. So over here, I can say course record over here. Okay, so I'm just declaring the type of some local variable inside the method, like how I declare integer variable. So course record, and then I'll say CR. How about that? How about C? Okay, C is simply assigned to new course record, and then I'm simply giving the title over here. You can see the title over here is referring to the title over here as the input. And now I'm simply going to give C. Okay, this compiled. I can tell you that this works. I'm going to show you the tester in just a moment. Okay, how about we do that very quickly? So now what I would like to do is I would like to create a new tester just to isolate this particular issue over here. And then I will show you that there's a way to improve this, okay, in just a moment. So what I would do is, can we just copy, I'll just create a new class, how about that? Okay, right click on the tests package, and then you can say class over here. Let's say students tester 3, okay? We're gonna get another version over here. And say finish. We're gonna make the tester very easy. We just want to add 2 courses into the students objects, and each one of them is gonna be added in a different way. Okay, I'm gonna say students. Okay, of course I can control space to make sure I add the students from the model package over here. Double click. Okay, or you can add this line manually by yourself. S1 would be, let's say new. Okay, students. Let's say give a name. Let's say Hyung over here. Okay, that's the students. Now I want to add the 2 courses. Let's say the number 1, we're gonna use version 1. Use of version 1 of addCourse, in which case you have to give course record. Okay, so now I really need to create a course record first before I can call this method here. So I can say course record. Okay, control space to make sure you choose it. Okay, import the course record. Let's say CR. It's assigned to new course record over here, and now I can say over here, let's say 1021. How about that? Just that. Okay, and then how about version 2? Oh, actually, sorry, I haven't used version 1 yet, have I? So, and then I have to say s1.addCourse, and then now you can see there are 2 versions we can choose. Either you can choose version number 1, which will take CR, or version number 2, which we'll do a little bit later. Okay, choose version 1, and then you can see we can do CR. You can see also Eclipse even suggested CR is a local variable just declare of type course record. Okay, let's choose that. Okay, that's the number 1. So that will be added as the first course at position 0 of the courses array of S1. Use of version 2 of addCourse. In this case, is going to be a string title. Okay, so now I'm gonna say S1, the same context object for the students, addCourse. And now let's say 2030. How about that? You can see now I really try to highlight to you the difference over here in the simplest possible example. You can see I'm trying to use S1 and S1 the same context objects. There are 2 possible ways now for me to actually add in the courses. Either I can say addCourse and then give a course object that I created previously. That's version number 1. Or I can say I can simply give a string title, just enough information for me to create a course object internally. Okay, so what I will do now is I'm going to print out the student's description, which we previously developed. I'm going to say system.out.println, and then I can say s1.get description. Okay, you should be very familiar with the dot notation now, hopefully, from the previous videos. Okay, and then after this, I'm also going to say s1.get description. Let's see what's going to happen. Presumably, after this one here, it should really tell me that there's only one course registered for Hyung, which would be 1021. And after this line over here, adding the second course, it should tell me Hyung is now registered for 2 courses, right? 1021 and 2030. So So now let's run this tester, student tester 3. If I right click on that and then I say run as Java application, so this is what I will get. Okay, that's pretty good. You can see student Hyung has registered one course over here in the first, and there was a course 1021, roll mark 0 with no instructor. That's okay. Nothing has been set up just yet. And then we also got student Hyung has registered for 2 courses, and now 1021 and 2030, right? Okay, so far so good. I want to show you one more thing before I try to go any further. Now, let's say I want to set the marks for the students. Okay, you can set the instructor in a similar way. I want to know if I simply do, let's say, S1 dot courses over here. If I say at position 0, let's say at position 1 dot set marks. Okay, let me remind you very quickly. If you go to the course record class, we did generate by using Eclipse, for example, the mutated method like set marks, right? That's something we did previously. Okay, and now the marks, let's say set the marks to be, what about 60? Okay, and then over here, let me say another thing. CR1, or let's say CR dot set marks. And then over here, let's say 79. Okay, so after these 2 lines, what's going to happen? Okay, I'm going to basically just print out this line again. They should still remain to be 2 courses, but now when I say CR.setMarks, I can give you a little bit hints, aliasing. Okay, because somehow CR and S1.courses at position 0, they're pointing to the same objects. So if you set the course object pointed to by CR to be of marks 79, you can change for the course in the array as well. Okay, we're going to see that. We're going to trace it by drawing some diagram. If I right click on, if I execute, you can see now we got something different, right? You can see after these 2 mutated methods call, you will actually get 79 for the first course and also 60 for the second course. But how exactly does this happen? Now, there are 2 things we would like to know. Number 1, how exactly are the difference between these 2 versions of the addCourse methods being executed at the runtime? Number 2, when we actually execute these 2 mutated methods, how exactly are things could happen? Okay, that's something we'd like to learn about. So I'm going to show you on iPad to do the tracing. And then I'm going to show you another improvement for the addCourse method. Okay, so now let's trace the code. I put all the relevant fragment of code that you should know in order to do the tracing. Okay, let me just tell you what we have. So in the student class, we got 2 versions of the addCourse method over here. We're going to trace one by one. And also, we also got this particular mutated method called setMarks in the course record class. And also we got lines of code that we just developed in the tester class, right? So let's see how we can trace them one by one. Okay, let's go line by line. Line number 1. So we're going to create a new, let's say, just go line by line. How about that? Let me just highlight. Line number 1, we're going to execute this line over here. We're going to create a new student object. Okay, let's do that quickly. So S1 is now going to point to a new student object. And now if you recall from the previous tutorial video, we're simply going to, for the students, they have 3 attributes. They have the name, they have the number of courses, the counter, and also the courses. I'll say CS, standing for courses, just for short. Okay, and also the name would be, in this case, Hyung over here. And and then the number of courses initially will just be 0 to begin with. And then we're also going to reinitialize an array of size 5. Okay, like that. Initially, every slot is just going to be null. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, that's what we'll get from this line over here. Okay, and now let's try to use a different color here. What's going to happen when we try to execute this line? We create a new course record called CR. Okay, let's do that quickly. And then what we will get is, we get CR is now going to point to a new course record objects, right? So course record objects, and then each course record has 3 attributes, I believe. So we got basically the title, we got the marks, and also we got the instructor. Okay, so now we only initialize the title to be 1021. Over here, the marks will just be by default 0, and also instructor will just be by default simply just null. And then we are trying to say over here s1.add course cr. Again, we're going to execute with context object being s1, and now because scr is a course record object, so that means we're going to execute this version of the code over here. Okay, so now every occurrence of this will be replaced by s1. So this will be s1, this will be s1, this will be s1. And then we're going to also every occurrence of c will be replaced by cr. So what do we have to do? We have to do already in orange over here. You would say s1 dot courses, the current value for s1.noc will just be 0 is assigned to cr. And then after that, we'll say s1.noc plus plus. Okay, that's something we did previously. You should be quite comfortable with that. It's just very quick review. And then what we will do is we're going to say assign whatever address it is for cr into position 0 of the array of the courses, right? Over here. So now we're going to store that over here, this particular address for s1.courses. So now conceptually it's going to point to this particular course objects. So now we do have aliasing because s1, okay, I'll just repeat, I'll just say it out. s1.courses at position 0 equals cr will be true, right? That's something we did in the previous video in a more thorough manner. In the previous video, you can check it out. Okay, so now that's why when I say system.out.println s1.getDescription over here, remember that getDescription is actually, let me mention one more detail that you should really pay attention to. If I go to the student class over here, if I go to the getDescription, remember we said that the upper bound for the loop should be this.noc, right? That's not something we emphasized before. To see why, you can if you forgot about why this is the case, as opposed to this.courses.length, you can refer to the previous video. Okay. So now what we will do is s1.getDescription is simply just going to go over all the value. Of course, after this, we're going to say s1.noc plus plus. noc plus plus will give you 1. So now we are going to go over all the value of loop counter until excluding 1. So that means we're going to go only print out the first record for this particular method call. Okay, that's something I wouldn't trace in detail. We did it already in the previous video. So now I want to show you the second version over here. I'm going to use pink. So what's going to happen if we try to execute this line? Again, s1 is a context object, and we're calling addCourse. And now this is a string value. That means we're going to call this particular second version over here, where string is a parameter type. So now every occurrence of this is going to be replaced by this. So this is going to be s1. Very similar to the first version there. That's why there's some further improvement I would like to make after tracing the code together with you. And then every occurrence of title is going to be replaced by 2030. So this will be 2030 over here, and also title over here will be 2030. You can see basically what this will do is it's going to internally create a local variable of type course record, and it's going to be C. You can think about C is now pointing to basically over here. You can see the two versions are basically doing the same thing. Over here it's going to be the course record over here, and then we got the 3 attributes. We got title. In this case, that will be 2030, right? Okay, you can see 2030 over here. And then we got a marks initially 0, and also instructor will be null initially. Okay, and now how do we execute these two lines? Okay, similar. So now it's going to be s1 dot courses at position. Okay, this one this is s1 dot noc. Noc is at the moment 1. Okay, it was incremented from the previous call. Okay, so now notice that when we try to call the orange one for the first time, right? We actually incremented the value for noc from 0 to 1. And now when we call the second version over here, we're also going to increment it from 1 to 2. Right? Doesn't matter which version you're calling, you always have to increment the noc value to make sure it works well. Okay, now in this case, it's going to be 1 is assigned to, in this case, C. Okay, so now C is a new object that we're creating, and also we're going to say, also the second line over here, you got s1.noc plus plus. Okay, these are the two lines we're going to execute. So what do we have? Well, if you go to s1.courses at position 1, and then you want to store in there the address that is stored in C. It's as if you try to draw a line like this, right? Exactly what we had before, and then make sure you also increment the value for NOC. Well, after that, it's going to become 2. Okay, you can see, I just want to show you very quickly how exactly things can work by calling these two versions of the mutated methods. They are basically equivalents. The only difference is the type of the input parameter. In one case, it's simply expecting a course record. In the other case, it's expecting a string, in which case you have to create a course record object inside the method. Okay, now finally, I would like to show you very quickly about aliasing. So now, if I say cr, okay, cr.setMarks, okay, you can see cr over here is a context object, right? By the way, we do have aliasing, right? You can see cr equals s1.courses at position 0. They are the same, right? So you can see s1, well, we did the exercise already. s1.courses at position 0 is referring to this particular object over here, and that's just the same object as cr. Okay, so that's aliasing over here. So if I say cr.setMarks to be 79, so now basically if I try to call this particular version of the setMarks over here, so every occurrence of marks will just be replaced by 79 in this case. So marks will be 79 over here. What about this? It will be the context object, which is cr. So cr.marks will be 79. cr.marks will be 79. So that's what we're doing over here. So now it would be as if I said s1.courses at position 0 dot set marks over here, and then to be 79. So these two are completely equivalent. Let me write it down on Eclipse very quickly for you. So if you go back to student tester number 3, okay, so now you know what? Let me keep that one there. I will say as if. Let me write down the one that's more interesting to you. S1 dot, oh actually you know what? The two actually are really the same. Sorry, I changed my mind. So I will say over here, it's as if we said s1 dot courses at position 0 dot set marks, and with the input arguments 60, right? Remember what we said before, s1 is students, s1 dot courses is course record array, and s1 dot courses at position 0 will be course record objects, and then you can change that course record objects by calling the mutated method, right? That's what we said. And now, because we can say cr equals s1 dot courses at position 0 is simply true. Okay, so you can say either way, not both. You can say either way. Okay, let's go back here. That's about the first one. What about the second one? The second one over here, let's use maybe green. Okay, the second one over here, the context object, first of all, we start with S1. So we start with S1 over here, and then courses, S1 courses is referring to this array over here, right? And then go to position 1. Position 1 is over here, which is referring to, and then we're going to say dot. So now for dot, we're going to following that particular address, and now we go to this particular course object in pink, right? And then we want to set the marks. So now what's the context object here? The context object really is S1 courses at position 1. So now we're going to call the set marks for the second time, okay, over here. So now every occurrence of this will be replaced by that particular context object. So every occurrence of this is going to be replaced by S1 dot courses at position 1. Okay, so now it's as if we try to do the following. We say S1 dot courses at position 1 is assigned to, now in this case, it's going to be 60. So now marks will be 60, and marks will be 60. is assigned to 60. So what do? You go to that particular position over there, as we said, is this particular objects, and then change the marks to be 60. So now it's as if, right? It's as if somehow we want to say C dot set marks if you want to do it 60. Okay. However, there's a slight trick over here, because the C over here is actually a local variable. So if you really want to set the marks, you have to set it inside this particular method if you want to do it, if that's what you want to do. But in this case, it may not be. You only want to set the marks outside the addCour method. So I would say in this case, maybe as if is not such a good idea. Okay, that also highlights the difference between the first and the second version. Let me tell you exactly what it is right now. In the first version over there, you can see that over here, the course object for the first version, the course object where you try to pass CR over here, you can still use CR to actually set. You can use the CR over here. You can see the CR is exactly a CR over here, right? You can still use it to set the marks for that particular course. On the other hand, if you try to say use the second version over here, the second version over here, in that case, you don't actually get access to the local variable because that's inside this particular method. So you don't really get access to it. The only way you can do it is by saying s1.courses at position 1. That's the only way you can refer to that particular course objects, okay? Because the C over here is not visible outside the addCour method. Okay, that's a little bit tricky over here, okay? But that's something worth noting. Okay, after this, I'll go back to the code over here. I would like to say one more thing to actually make a conclusion for this video here. If I go back to student class, I want to give you a better style of code. You can see that these two lines seems to be a repetition of these two lines. Whenever you got repetition in your code, that is not a good sign. Okay, this course is not really about software design, but I'd like to give you a little bit idea. Every time when you see duplication in your code, that means you got something wrong. Okay, so now the best way, one way to a very good way to get rid of code repetition is defining a helper method or calling a helper method. So now in this case, you can think about these two lines are basically just a repetition of what this first version would do. So now I would suggest the following. So now rather than having these two lines over here, as soon as I have the objects ready over here, I can simply call this block of code over here. So I can simply say this dot addCour, okay? And then I can simply pass C over here, and I'm done. Okay, this has exactly the same effects as these two lines over here. Basically, whatever context objects you have, you're going to use the same context objects and then call the first version with some course objects. So where does the course object come from? It comes from exactly this one that we have just created. Okay, the tracing is very easy. I'll leave it to you. Okay, so now let's just make sure this can work. If I just go back to my tester over here, let's go back to student tester number 3. Let's just make sure everything still works. If I execute it, you can see now, initially, just one course over here, okay? And then we have added 2 courses over here. Okay, oh, sorry. So here, this is after adding the first course, okay, by using the first version over here. And then this is after the second version of adding. So now we got 2 courses. Now after that, we simply try to set the marks for the 2 courses as we did before. Okay, so now you can see that the first version now, the first and second version is now depending on each other one way. Okay, so now you can see the marks has been set. Let me recap very quickly. Basically, for this video here, I'm just trying to show you in the student class, you can have 2 versions of the mutated method, okay, with a different parameter type over here. And now once we know exactly how it works by doing some tracing, okay, and also analyzing some aliasing behavior over here, I also told you that since we got repetition of the code, which is a bad sign for your design, so the best way to do it is by see if you can call any other method or create a method on your own, which we will do in a later video. So now in this case, I'm just saying, I simply, once I create a local course object, I simply calling the first version again, Okay, you can think about the second version is like reusing the first version over here. Okay, so once I have the local objects for the course record being created, I can pass that as an input by calling the first version, which will execute exactly these two lines over here. Okay, so now that'll be it. So review the ideas about this and make sure you're comfortable with both versions over here before you go on to the next video.